Hello, welcome to our YouTube channel. Today we're joined by our centre researcher David Hearne. So David, the UK economy suffered its biggest slump on record between April and June as coronavirus lockdown measures obviously pushed the country officially into a recession. So this isn't a huge surprise really, is it?
No, this has to rank as probably the least surprising recession to ever hit. I mean, we all knew that there was going to be a huge shock, a huge contraction in economic activity. It's hardly surprising when the government issued decrees essentially banning and preventing a lot of activities, that economic activity responded to that. It was simply impossible to do many of the things that are counted within GDP during a large part of the period covered. So in a certain sense, that's not something to worry about. That's a deliberate consequence of government policy. So it's certainly not surprising in the slightest.
So how does the UK's COVID recession then actually compare with previous ones then, as reports this morning state that the latest slump is actually deeper than the 2008 financial crisis, as well as issues from the 80s and the 70s as well?
Yeah, it's by far the largest slump we've ever seen on record, and probably one of the largest off record as well. I don't think you'll find anything comparable in size, not even close. But again, I think something that people often miss is that it's a result of deliberate policy, and it's not necessarily a bad thing in quite the same way as other recessions are, although there can be no question that we're going to suffer some tough times ahead. One of the issues that we see here is that actually what matters is not just the size of how much the economy shrinks, but how quickly it bounces back as well. So the awful thing about the 2008 to 2009 recession wasn't just how deep it was, although it was a deep recession. It was the fact that it took 7 years, more than 7 years in fact, for GDP per capita to recover its previous level. So that's a remarkable length of time.
And so the ONS have said that the economy bounced back in June as obviously government restrictions on movement started to ease. So do you think that there could be signs that things will start to get better in the coming months then, and perhaps the recession won't last as long as the 2008-2009 one?
I think at the moment it's just far too early to say, and a huge amount will depend on government policy. We know, I mean, look, we're halfway through the third quarter already, so at least half of everything that's going to happen in Q3 has already happened, and we know for a fact that large parts of the economy that were inoperable, not able to operate during Q2, are able to operate during Q3, at least so far. So we know for a fact pretty much already that we're going to see a big bounce back. June was an indication of that. I think July will be bigger again, and August, that perhaps question marks over that. So it's a certainty that this recession will not last more than 2 quarters. We're already out of it in a technical sense. There is no recession now. The question is going to be, what will be the longer term economic impact be? And a large amount of that will be determined by, is there a vaccine? What happens in terms of jobs? If the furlough scheme is extended, at least in part or for certain sectors, then that would act to protect jobs. Otherwise, what we might see is huge shedding of jobs for after October in particular, although starting right now, to be honest. And that would be quite damaging in the longer term. So in that sense, everything is in the government's hands. There are ways in which you deal with things.
Thanks for joining us, David.
Thank you.